Hello, what's up YouTube? It is your boy Brutal Chaos. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Don't think I forgot about you Warhammer fans. There's still plenty of Warhammer videos to come. Like I said, I'm just expanding my playlist, so definitely check them out. We've been doing freaking AFL reactions, video game reactions. Think about doing more funny reactions, scary reactions. We're just expanding our family here on YouTube. But I will not forget about you Warhammer guys or any of you all in the playlist. Like I said, I got it sorted on the channel so y'all can check out what you like. Guys, today we're going to be checking out another recommendation, which is, why is there freaking melee in 40k? That's a good question, because they got bolters and all this stuff. I mean, why is there? Guess we're going to find out in this video by Arch. We will leave the original link to the video down in the description. Hope y'all enjoy the video. Let's pull it right up and get right into this, because I have a feeling it's going to be kind of funny. But at the same time, you know, I don't know what to expect, so let's go.
Greetings and salutations, friends. So, now that we're going to be starting on 40k lore, I figured I'd start out with one of the questions I get asked the most whenever I try to introduce someone to Warhammer 40k. Why the hell is there melee in the far future with laser weapons, automatic rocket launchers, and space elves and orcs and nonsense? I mean, surely melee must have become rather bloody obsolete at this point in time.
He's got a really good point. I was thinking the same thing right off the rip.
Automatic rocket launchers and space elves and orcs and nonsense. I mean, surely melee must have become rather bloody obsolete at this point in time, right? Well, this is, I've found, one of those things that seem to keep the most people away from 40k, because they see this giant, super heavily armored space marine and they go like, well, first and foremost, that's a stereotype and I don't even give a shit, you know, it's just another space marine. They don't explore the space marines, and be assured I will be taking them on sooner rather than later. But the second one is they go, well, he's got a chainsaw, as cool as that is, it just sounds ridiculous. I find a lot of people think that. Now, as with most things in the 41st millennium, there is a reason for this. There is a reason why melee is such an integral part of Warhammer 40k. Now, obviously, part of the reason is because it looks cool. This is a tabletop wargame after all, which, you know, the cool factor is kind of important, so naturally that is part of it. However, there are also reasons why you actually do have melee in this kind of universe. Now, if we start out with the ones who
I'm gonna rewind a little bit. I mean, we could all agree freaking melee is awesome, and if it's two big dudes like an orc and freaking a space marine beating the crap out of each other, I mean, who's not gonna watch that? Everybody's gonna want to pull out some like popcorn and watch them smash each other's face in. I mean, let's be honest.
Is part of it. However, there are also reasons why you actually do have melee in this kind of universe. Now, if we start out with the ones who utilize melee the least, for example, we have the Tau. The Tau, being extremely advanced technologically, have almost completely discarded the need for melee. At most of their troops have access to combat.
The Tau are also freaking some of the most, I heard, annoying faction. One of the most annoying factions, and they're really like based on long range, so yeah.
If we start out with the ones who utilize melee the least, for example, we have the Tau. The Tau, being extremely advanced technologically, have almost completely discarded the need for melee. At most of their troops have access to combat knives, which, you know, a knife is always going to be a standard issue kit to any soldier, regardless in what century or millennia you're in, just because, well, a knife is useful. It's not only useful for stabbing people, but useful for everyday activities. I don't think we're ever going to be seeing a modern military where some form of cutting-edge tool is not going to be standard issues.
I'm gonna rewind again, and then we're gonna pause a little bit less. That's immediately what I thought of right there. The orcs. Like as soon as he said melee, why is there melee? I thought of these dudes, man, because they love to bash each other's face in. And I love it.
Useful for stabbing people, but useful for everyday activities. I don't think we're ever going to be seeing a modern military where some form of cutting-edge tool is not going to be standard issue, so that makes sense, but otherwise they have very, very little in the way of melee weapons. However, recognizing the need for melee weapons, because occasionally you're going to have to fight in areas where you're going to be involved in melee.
Yep.
And the standard weapon of the Tau is very, very long and bulky. It's not at all suited for close quarter or urban combat. And this is the role in which they employ one of their many, how should I say it without spoiling too much? Well, one of the many, I guess we can use the word enslaved for the moment. It's not entirely correct, but yeah, just gonna use it for now. Races, which are the Kroot. The Kroot are this race of avian beings. They're hyper-aggressive, they're really strong, considering how wiry they're looking, and they're very, very tough, fast, and agile, which makes them excellent close-quarter combatants. They are given weapons with less of the complexity of the full-on Tau weapons, but they're more sturdy and can be used as in melee weapons, as they have a large, nasty blade on the end, and of course they also use a wide variety of improvised melee weapons.
I was gonna say, yeah, I love how the freaking Death Corps of Krieg use the shovel and they have the bayonets on the end of theirs, like the ends of their laser guns. Man, that's freaking nice.
Weapons, as they have a large, nasty blade on the end, and of course they also use a wide variety of improvised melee weapons. And they also use a lot of mold melee weapons that they used to use when they were an independent species, being a bit of a hunter-gatherer, kind of mercenary type race. I'll get into more detail on them in my actual Tau video, but trying not to spoil too much of the... I don't even know if I can call this spoilers, but you get what I'm meaning. Okay. But even this race does recognize the need for some melee. Then how about the good old-fashioned humans, the Imperial Guard? Well, the Imperial Guard has an almost innumerable amount of different regiments. Some regiments are actually quite fond of melee and will actually equip their troops with dedicated melee weapons along the lines of short chain swords, gladiuses, stabbing swords, large combat knife. The more technologically advanced worlds are even known to equip entire regiments with power weapons. This is ludicrously rare, and is only really the case in elite specialized units, but it has happened.
I mean, it makes sense. That way you got the chain sword and he's got a bolter or a gun with him, so he can hit a target behind him, like that orc behind him. He can shoot him if he needs to, and then whack this one. I mean, it kind of balances itself out.
Power weapons. This is ludicrously rare, and is only really the case in elite specialized units, but it has happened. But the vast majority of normal regiments, so to say, are usually only equipped with a combat knife that also serves as a bayonet. In some cases this is more of a sword bayonet, but, you know, to use the real-world equivalent, this is the standard World War II, World War I era bayonet, rather than the sword bayonet. Now, of course, this weapon can be used for a wide variety of things, being, you know, a knife. They are also equipped, of course, with the basic entrenching tools, which has been proven throughout our own world wars to be pretty goddamn good at beating the living crap out of other people, so those can, of course, be used in an emergency. But adding to this, they have a lot of weapons in their officer class. For example, some of them have power fists, which are these massive metal hands that, you know, they're gloves, essentially, except way bigger and hulkier. Now, these things are there to give a squad a bit of close-in melee power when it comes to heavily armored enemies, much the same as most power weapons. The simple fact is that the standard Imperial Guard squad is often going to be running into shit that they just simply can't deal with the standard issue lasguns, and while an Imperial Guard officer has next to no chance in combat against, well, for example, a Chaos Warrior, you know, at least having a power weapon gives the squad the potential to deal with them, and in most cases, melee weapons given to officers are used much like halberdiers were when they were given to sergeants in early gunpowder warfare of our own history, where they were used as a means of distinguishing the person and to keep men in line. You know, in the frantic battlefield, it's a hell of a lot easier to recognize the dude waving a sword around than anybody else, so
True.
you get that, okay, he has a chainsword, not only can I hear the sound of the chainsword, I can see him, he's instantly recognizable as a commander, and I should probably do what he tells me to do. Of course, this also has the benefit of marking out leaders, but the Imperium of Man finds it far more preferable that people know where their leaders are than really keeping that close an eye on their livelihood. After all, there's always more officers where the last one came from. And, of course, the Imperial Guard often finds itself in positions where melee weapons are quite goddamn handy, as so many of their enemies use them. For example, the Orcs. The standard issue Imperial Guard bayonet is goddamn handy when your position is getting overrun by Gretchens and your power pack.
Was just talking about them before. I told you about the Death Corps, man. Here they are.
The standard issue Imperial Guard bayonet is goddamn handy when your position is getting overrun by Gretchens and your power pack is out, to say the absolute least.
Yep.
And of course, it's also a really handy tool when Chaos forces are attacking, since they often do not in any way differentiate between soldiers and civilians. Essentially, if Chaos takes root on a world, it will throw everything at the Loyalist troops. It will convert normal, everyday civilians into fighting forces, which means that the vast majority of the time, the Loyalist troops are disgustingly outnumbered. I mean, think about our worlds. Yeah, our worlds, yes. We've got multiple, of course. That secret base on, the moon and that nonsense. The Americans wouldn't tell you about it, but it's there, I swear. Okay. Okay, our modern way, they know it. How many troops does a nation actually have? Almost no one. I mean, consider a fully mobilized nation and wartime in modern Europe. You're probably looking at tops 10-20% of the population under arms, and even that's not really sustainable for any length of time. I mean, 10-20% is kind of an extreme example, really, when you start to think about it.
Yep.
And the percentage for that is as small, if not smaller, in 40k, because you have entire worlds to think about. The economy has to go on. The Imperial Guard...
The Warhammer universe, the 40k universe is huge. Like there's so much, man. Like I said, there's something for everybody. Like literally in this universe.
20% is kind of an extreme example, really, when you start to think about it. And the percentage for that is as small, if not smaller, in 40k, because you have entire worlds to think about. The economy has to go on. The Imperial Guard simply can't fight on without an infrastructure backing them up, producing weapons, food, etc., etc. But Chaos, in many cases, they just don't give a shit about this.
Oh.
Which means that those 10% Imperial Guards are now fighting the remaining 90% of a planet. The odds are stacked rather heavily against them, and in many cases, when screaming hordes of fanatics armed with anything they can get their hands on, knives, cutlery, axes, anything literally, is just storming your positions in this massive human wave style, you're gonna be damn happy to have that bloody bayonet, not to mention the trenching tool. And in many cases,
it's gonna be your best friend.
Melee is a means to an end, a means to enhance an advantage. This is the way of the Space Marines. Okay, a Space Marine versus a normal human. The normal human is boned without question, but let's take a squad. 10 normal humans armed with standard issue lasguns. Now, a lasgun will... it's gonna struggle to penetrate power armor, to say the absolute bloody least. 10 of them? Maybe, but not so much the penetration power. The simple fact is that if you've got 10 guys with lasguns just spraying down a single Space Marine, odds are they're going to eventually hit something important. And the thing is, the Space Marine is at that point playing his odds. He can stand at range, and he can try and kill all of the enemy squads while in cover. Both sides are shooting at each other. It's probably going to be a protracted engagement, despite the superiority of the Space Marine in ranged combat. And the longer the firefight lasts, the greater the odds that something is going to hit something valuable, However, He's a space marine. He's far tougher than any normal human.
Oh
He's
yeah.
far faster, and he's a hell of a lot stronger.
Dude, them space marines are strong. Like, you get hit by one of them, you're done. Like, your head's gonna explode like a tomato.
The longer the firefight lasts, the greater the odds that something is going to hit something valuable, you know? However, he's a space marine. He's far tougher than any...
Last pause, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, if you want an example, watch the Astartes video, where that freaking dude gets punched in the face. Brutal.
going to hit something valuable, you know? However, he's a space marine. He's far tougher than any normal human. He's far faster, and he's a hell of a lot stronger. Now, this means that at range, his advantages are limited. He's got a bigger gun, he's probably better at aiming, and he's got a better integrated auto sensors in his power armor. These are advantages, definitely, but if he gets into melee, then it's a whole other ballgame. First and foremost, he's faster, he's stronger, he's tougher, and he's more heavily armed. He definitely has a better melee weapon. A combat knife to a space marine is like a sword to any other human, and that's assuming he doesn't have a chainsword, or even better, a power weapon of some sort.
Yep.
Not to mention the fact that, well, at that close range, it's going to be damn hard to bring a lasgun to bear effectively, which means that the human troopers might switch over to melee weapons themselves, and heaven knows, they're never gonna kill a space marine in melee combat with a bayonet, you know? So, in this case, it's simply safer, as ludicrous as it sounds, for the space marine to get into melee combat with his opponents. It's riskier for him to stand it out and fight. And for many of their other races, it's the same deal. The Eldar, for example, employ their own melee specialists, the Striking Scorpions and the Banshees, as shock troops or as terror troops. The Banshees are troops that work best in ambush. They jump out in close confines and stun their enemies with high-pitched screams emitted from their specialized war masks, essentially turning their screams into sonic weapons. Very, very effective, as even though you're only going to be stunned for a couple seconds by the volume and the impact on your nervous system, a couple seconds is more than enough to kill you in close-quarter combat.
It don't take much, man, and everybody loves a big slobber fest, man. It don't take much to get beat up. Like, you get a space marine right up in your face, it's over.
Even though you're only going to be stunned for a couple seconds by the volume and the impact on your nervous system, a couple seconds is more than enough to kill you in close-quarter combat, especially for an Eldar. And the Striking Scorpions, well, they're shock troops, heavily armored, rushing towards the enemy at high speed, trusting to their armor, their reflexes, and their speed to protect them from enemy ranged weapons for long enough to get into combat, where again they have a massive advantage. And orcs? Well, orcs have always considered their ranged weapons more as a distraction rather than a means to an end. I mean, guns are fantastic, they make loud boomy noises and they create beautiful flashing lights, but yeah, you know, they're not very effective weapons. A nice solid hunk of metal, roughly sharpened, however. Oh yes, that'll do the job just fine, darling, just fine. So, what I'm laboriously trying to get around to saying here is that melee is a very important and very valid part of the 41st millennium. Of course, there are multiple situations where melee will not be much part of the equation. For example, the siege of a planet named Vrax. This was a massive battle against a heavily entrenched force, where the Imperium had essentially...
I heard a lot of you all talking about that. Like, I heard of a lot of you all talking about Vrax.
Of course, there are multiple...
We'll have to check that out later.
Just fine, darling. Just fine. So, what I'm laboriously trying to get around to saying here is that melee is a very important and very valid part of the 41st millennium. Of course, there are multiple situations where melee will not be much part of the equation. For example, the siege of a planet named Vrax. This was a massive battle against a heavily entrenched force, where the Imperium had essentially resigned themselves to just buy control of the planet with the lives of their troops. Like, before the campaign had even begun, Imperial strategists had gone like, okay, considering the amount of fortifications and weapons, we're probably going to buy every square meter of this planet with 2 dead Imperial Guardsmen. And they said, okay, fine.
That's freaking savage. Sorry to pause so much, man. I enjoy the Warhammer videos a lot. Dude, that artwork right there is super sick. I really like the way his armor looks and the shield. What type of soldier is that? Like, is he a space marine? He kind of looks like one. But man, his armor is awesome, and that hammer is nice. Super sick.
Gone like, okay, considering the amount of fortifications and weapons, we're probably going to buy every square meter of this planet with 2 dead Imperial Guardsmen. And they said, okay, fine. How many square meters are there? And they simply just dedicated that many Guardsmen. It makes World War I look like a bloody garden party.
Wow.
And in a war like that, melee is going to play almost no part at all. A war like that would be decided by weight of artillery, weight of numbers, and just the sheer amount of smackdown you can lay on the enemy trenches before then charging them en masse and hopefully finishing off the last of the dazed and confused defenders. I mean, it's going to be one hell of a grueling melee campaign, and again, melee is going to be necessary, at least in part, simply because, well, the bastards are hunkered down. You can't rely on artillery to chase all of them out of their lair. I mean, hell, we tried that in World War I, and that didn't work very well, did it? It was proven quite thoroughly that regardless of how heavy your guns, how many of them employ, and how many shells you throw at the enemy, there is always going to be the need for a humble infantryman to go in there with a bayonet. That's just warfare. And if anything, the 41st millennium has only made it more necessary, as infantry protection has increased. I mean, Space Marines give no shits about artillery bombardments. Even a direct hit is unlikely to kill the bastard. It's gonna wound and maim him, sure, but he'll still be fighting when the doughboys come over the top. Not to mention orcs. I mean, damn it. They're not gonna give much of a shit either, and if you do kill a hell of a lot of them, well, so what? There's more of them. Eldar? Oh, force fields, reflective fields, cloaking fields. You're probably not even going to end up in a situation where you can use artillery against them. The point I'm so laboriously trying to get to is, well, melee is still necessary in our time, and if anything, I mean, our ability to kill infantry today is a hell of a lot larger than our ability to protect infantry, which is, again, quite different from the 41st millennium, where in many cases infantry protection is actually quite handily capable of defeating infantry offense. So, essentially, that's why melee is in Warhammer 40,000, and why it's such an integral part of the universe, and why you will see so much of it in artwork and reference material, because, well, it's in there, and, of course, it looks damn cool. So, I hope that's been somewhat informative, and maybe I've managed to convince a few of you that, 40k and melee is not as ridiculous as it sounds. Until next time, I have been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.
That's awesome. He's right. Man, melee is cool, man. Especially the orcs, man. You know they like to beat the crap out of stuff. And plus, man, like Space Marines, them are some big dudes. Like I said, watch the Astartes 1 through 5 if you have not. Amazing Warhammer videos, man. Amazing edits and stuff. And man, show love to the people that make these original videos. Excuse me. But show love to people, man. Listen, man, these people out here doing these lore channels and all the stuff on YouTube, man. Anytime you see me do a reaction, definitely check out the original videos, man. Like, there's some good stuff. But man, he is right. Melee is super cool. Cause who don't want to see two dudes or two people, two orcs, an orc and a freaking human, an orc and a uh freaking Astartes, a space marine. Who don't want to see? The point is, it looks cool, and everybody wants to see someone get the crap beat out of each other. I mean, come on. I mean, it would be kind of a letdown to me if Melee wasn't in Warhammer 40k. So, super awesome video, really informative video, man. That's a cool video by Arch, man. Like I said, show love to the original video. I'll post it down below. Hope you enjoyed the reaction. More reactions on the channel. Been doing AFL. Like I said, game reactions, funny reactions. I mean, all kinds of reactions. I'm just, like, my channel is basically a reaction channel, and I made a playlist for you people that love certain topics. Make it a little easier on you guys. So, like I said, thank you for hitting that subscribe button if you enjoyed the video. Thank you for hitting that like button. It helps me grow, man. We've been smashing through goals, man. Like, you all are freaking awesome. I do try to read everybody's comments and write back to them. And I love to hear from you all. I love to hear what you want to recommend. We got so many recommendations to get to. So just know that I will not forget Warhammer or any really topic here on the channel in a playlist. So it will be more. So we'll see you guys in the next video.